I mean, looking back to medieval Middle Ages, what's the life expectancy? What's that looking like for us?
Isn't it like the 30s?
Yeah, late 30s, you know, early 40s. And so what that meant was everything was accelerated. You got married much younger, you had kids when you were younger, all of that. We had more kids because you realized a lot of them weren't going to survive childbirth or childhood. Yeah. And then we think about the way we've done with that time. So now we have medical advances, we have all this stuff. So now we're living, what, 75, 80 years or so, roughly. And then you think about, so because we have all these advancements, what do? Well, we eat like crap. Why? Because medicine will keep us alive. You know? I wonder what the upper limits of that are if we use those sorts of things. Because, you know, we actually have a decrease in life expectancy right now for the first time in a while. But, you know, that's, you know, reasons for that, essentially suicide and opioids. So in other words, we're taking a lot more drugs than we used to, opioids. And yet opioids attack your body. So they deal with pain, they help you address physical pain, but then they also shorten your life. You know? And so it's worth considering, why is it that suddenly we have this opioid epidemic, this opioid crisis. Anybody like Dave Chappelle? Yeah. If you watch his last special, when he came out most recently, it's funny, he talks about that. You know, he talks about the opioid epidemic, and it looks a whole lot like the crack cocaine epidemic back in the 80s. But back then, why did people take crack? Oh, low values, man, you know, bad people. Well, why do people take opioids now? Oh, because they're in pain. See the problem? Both people are doing it for the exact same reason. They're numbing some kind of a pain. But when it's some other group that's doing that, you know, we have these very low ideas of them. Oh, they're just bad people. They're just drug addicts. They're this and that. But as soon as people take opioids, we're like, oh my goodness, what do we have to deal with this? It's a problem. You know, so Chappelle does a really funny thing about that. He just says, you know, just say no. You know, but it's worth considering what it is that the pain that we're numbing. So you could say it's a physical pain. In other words, we just don't like physical pain anymore. We're at a point now where we don't have to deal with physical pain. So every chance we get, a little bit of a headache, boom, aspirin, let's get rid of it. If you got a little bit of a cut, oh, you know, quick, take this. You're cooking and you burn your skin, so what do? Oh, let's go get some Vicodin. Go to the emergency room, we get Vicodin. And then these things get you used to the idea that no pain is the norm. You know, versus what historically we've understood, which is that, well, pain and struggle and strife is the norm. And that those are the things that get you over. In other words, if you have a little bit of pain, it's like anybody, you know, if you ever talk to women who give birth, and then they'll talk about the pain associated with giving birth, and they'll say it's the worst that you could possibly feel. And after that, you stub your toe, it's like, oh, I stubbed my toe. If you've never really had much pain before and you stub your toe, it's like, you know, you post memes about it, you know, how much it hurts when you step on a piece of Lego. You think about that. And all these memes about how much it hurts when you step on Lego. Like, really, that's the pain that we're going to, you know, that's the relatable pain that we're going to meme out about, you know? And it's not just a meme. Memes carry with them these ideas that, you know, that just kind of transcend all of our culture. Transcend us culturally, we all relate to it because we all connect to this idea, which means that many of us have stepped on a Lego and just been like, yeah, that's horrible pain. And then what happens is now you see all those memes, and then you step on a piece of Lego later, and now the idea of the pain is actually exaggerated beyond what it actually is, you know, because we're connecting with it on that level. And so it's worth considering if the pain that we're seeking to avoid is physical pain, or if the pain that we're trying to avoid is actually psychological pain. Is it the pain of existence? Is it the pain of lack of meaning? Is it the pain of lack of purpose? Because that's what it was when you're dealing with drug epidemics for the most part, drug addictions, alcohol addictions, is the desire to use that thing to numb the suffering. And so it's worth considering if all of a sudden we have all of these, you know, the opioid epidemic, which, you know, seems to hit certain segments, if it's even hitting those segments now of the population, it's worth considering, like, oh my God, what pain are we all in that we're trying to avoid? You know, why is it that all of a sudden there's this immense suffering psychologically? Where is it coming from? What's happening to us? If that's now the norm. You know? So he's talking, yeah, specifically about modern people. We can think about how it is that a washing machine, for example, saves us time. I wonder how many of you guys have washing machines and dryers at home, and think about what that looks like versus if you go to a laundromat. You know, you go down to a laundromat, and so you wear your everybody's wearing their laundry day clothing, you know, all mismatched in different socks and stuff like that. And you go in these big piles and baskets, and then you go and you wash everything. And think about how long it takes you to do that. Hour, hour and a half, 2 hours. And then think about what you do at that time, though. So you put everything in there, and then you just kind of like wait. You know, and then the first batch comes out, you put it in the dryer maybe. And then when that comes out, you still got more stuff going, so what do? Well, might as well fold it. You're already there, so you fold it. But you look at the counter, you're a little concerned about the state of the counter. Maybe you'll clean it off, maybe not. And then you fold the laundry, and then more stuff comes out. And then when you go to leave, for the most part, you've got everything done, mostly folded or whatever. It's taking you a couple of hours. Now, if you have your laundry at home, you wash and dryer at home, now think about what that looks like. You put your stuff in the washer, and you'll put like 3 or 4, you know, maybe there's a shirt you want to wear tomorrow, so you'll throw it in the washer by itself, which you would never do at the laundromat, but you throw it in there anyway. Or a few things, whatever. Sorry. And then you go down, and then you wander away from it. And then you realize a couple of hours later, oh, that's right, I was washing that. And you go back to it, and maybe your washer dryer outside, so you're like, oh my God, I have to walk outside. You know, go around, then you get it, and you know, oh, it's cold. And then you put stuff in the dryer, and then you wander away from it, and then you forget it's there, and then you know, you come out, oh, that's right, go get it. And you go and get it, and you take the stuff out, and you stand there and you fold it. Nah, just throw it in the basket, I'll fold it later. You know, thinking about now how you know, that modern convenience has allowed it, has given us the opportunity to say, I'm not going to dry it right now, I'm not going to fold it right now, I'll do it later, I'll do it later, I'll do it later, because we'd rather do something else with our time right now. Well, understand that laundry catches up with all of us, and so do our decisions, the things that we do in life. We all pay for what we do. It doesn't seem like it at the time. Some of us pay sooner, some of us pay later, but we all pay for what we do. The more and the longer I live, the more I really understand that. And so eventually you're going to have to fold the laundry. Or you leave it in the basket and you'll put it on, it'll be wrinkly, and you'll be like, oh my God, why is this so wrinkly? Because you didn't do what you're supposed to along the way of folding it, drying it. You know? So you think about what it is now. At that time when that stuff was happening, what were you doing with your time? You know? I don't know. Was it worth it? I don't know. It's a personal decision. Maybe it was. Maybe it was worth it. We have this tendency to just ask that question, was it worth it? And we're supposed to say, no, it wasn't worth it, even though it really probably was. Even just now, I mean, I don't think I've seen you guys as unfocused on the journal as I saw you guys today working on this. In fact, a very small handful of you guys actually working on it. If I were to ask you right now, what were the conversations about? What were you doing when that was happening? Was it worth it? Our knee-jerk reaction might be, no, it wasn't worth it, because now I have to stay up late the night before, you know, on the 20th, you know, writing these things. But was it worth it? Maybe. You know, maybe the conversation you had brought you closer to somebody and it was fun and all that, so maybe it was worth it. You know? So that's the thing we have to figure out. Is it worth it? Is the time that we've gathered up, the things that we're doing with it, we might say we're killing the time, but notice that there's a presupposition here. The presupposition being that you should fill your time with things that move you forward. You know? If I asked you guys this already, do you guys still read the Odyssey in 9th grade? Nobody? Yeah. I know some people teach. I don't know who teaches it still. But if you've read the Odyssey, or if you haven't, I'll be real quick about it. Essentially, in the Odyssey, you've got this character, Odysseus, and he has a little band of warriors, and they go off and they fight in a war, and then they're victorious, and their whole thing is about, for their whole life philosophy is to go out, conquer, achieve, you know, gain more, you know, become the alphas, and then after they're victorious, they're on their way home. And when they're on their way home, it takes them a very long time to get home because the trip is not a direct one. Every time they start to go, they get distracted by something, or they get pulled off of course, and they get diverted. So, like, they try to get home, and then they end up shipwrecked. Then they have to survive some kind of an adventure, and then they say, okay, ready to go. Then they go off again, and they encounter some kind of an adventure. So it takes them over a decade to get home. This is why we talk about it being, if you go on a long journey, we talk about it being on an odyssey. And so, one of the places that they end up, they're sailing. A storm catches them, a wind catches them, and they end up in what we would call today Iran, Persia. In the book, it's referred to as the land of the lotus eaters. Now, if you know, then you know. You can figure out from my description what it is the lotus eaters are eating. What is the lotus? So they end up on this beach, and they're not sure, it's a strange land. So they send out a couple of people and say, hey, go out and find, go scout the land. So their people go out, they scout the land, and then they never return. these warriors. So Odysseus says, let's gather up our men. We need to go find them, find out what happened to them. So they all gather up and they all go out there, to be victorious, to conquer whatever's happened to them. We're going to find out. We're going to do it because they're all men of action. And then they get out there and then they're coming across this group of people and they find out what happened to their people. Group of people they call them the lotus eaters. And what are they doing? Chilling, man. That's all. They're just chilling. Hanging out under trees, apple falls, oh, cool, eat the apple. There's no armor, there's no swords, there's no conquering going on. They're just chilling there. You can think of them as hippies. And so they end up coming across the two guys who were sent out, and they've got flowers in their hair and stuff like that. They're just chilling out with the hippies. And then they're like, oh, are you okay? What happened to you? They're like, yeah, we're cool. Yeah. These guys, the lotus eaters, they got some cool ideas, man. We got to think about this. And they're explaining to the lotus eaters, their whole thing is just relax, man. Enjoy life. Calm down. Don't feel like you always have to be doing something. So if you feel like you're always doing something, you're missing out on the enjoyment of life. And so they're like, yeah, they're filling your head with all kinds of stuff. They're making you eat those. Let's go. Come on. And they're like, nah, we don't want to go. And the lotus eaters are explaining. They're like, yeah, you guys are living this life of constant action and adventure, but when you ever get an opportunity to just sit and enjoy life, relax, calm, they never do because they're always doing something. And so, a few of Odysseus' men are like, maybe we should chill with them, And it is no. Or they end up having to grab the guy and drag them away, kicking and screaming. They don't want to leave. Like, no, you're coming with us in a life of action. And they drag them across on the boat. They get on. They're able to escape. They don't attack them. They don't hang out either. They're just like, yeah, this is a bad place for us to be. We don't want to be here. It's infecting our souls. So they leave. But you understand that what's being portrayed here is these two very different approaches to life. And if I ask you, what should you do with your life? A lot of times our natural reaction is, we should always seek more, should always achieve, should always be accomplishing things. But that would be the way of Odysseus. But then if I look at how it is that we typically live, oftentimes we live like the lotus eaters. We just want to chill, man. We just want to not do so much. We just want to relax, have leisure, and all that. The problem comes when you want the benefits that come along with a life of action, but you want to live the life of leisure. You've got to rectify those things and sort those things out so that the life that you're actually pursuing is yielding the fruits that you want to eat from. And so, which one is it? The point is that it's not a value judgment, but just be clear about what it is that you want. It isn't so clear that living a life of action and adventure is the best life, as evidenced by the fact that so few people pick it. Really? I remember if it was this class, was I talking about Neil Armstrong in here? Landing on the moon and all that? I was reading this interview with Neil Armstrong once. He was talking about going to the moon and space exploration. He was saying, there's something in the human spirit that kind of forces us or drives us to always seek beyond, to always go for more, And he says, it's just in our spirit. And then we hear that and we're like, yeah, that's how people are. But are we? This guy, so he goes up and he lands on the moon and he says, one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Which, by the way, he messed up the line. He was supposed to say, one small step for a man, and then one giant leap for mankind. But then again, he also wasn't supposed to be the first person to step on the moon. He was supposed to be the second, but he was higher ranked than the other guy, so he pulled rank and said, forget it, I'm going, not you. Because they were in the military and he was a higher rank. So he just pulled rank on him and said, I'm going to do it. But anyway, think about who it is then that strived like that. It was Neil Armstrong. And I always have to catch myself before I say Neil Armstrong, because I'm always about to say Lance Armstrong, the cyclist. So it's Neil Armstrong, and then a few thousand researchers and engineers and so forth who built everything and made it happen so that he got to the moon. And what happens is that those few thousand people out of a nation of however many people we had at the time, 150 million, and they look at a world population, probably 4.5 billion, I'm guessing, 5 billion people at the time. And then one person lands on the moon, and then we all go, yeah, look what we did. We didn't do it, man. You were at the pub, You were passed out on your couch. You were, at a family reunion or whatever. It's a very small group of people that propelled everything forward. And then the rest of us like to take credit for it. When in actuality, we're not living those lives. We're not living a life of adventure and excitement. We like to partake in it. It's one of the reasons that we like movies so much. It's one of the reasons that we like superheroes so much. Because it allows us to sit there passively and not actually do the hero stuff, but just kind of taking it vicariously or enjoy it, by watching it, and not actually, again, have to do those things, Like, we talk about, like, people love Batman. It's like, oh, Batman, they think of themselves as Batman. Have you ever done Batman stuff? Are you training your mind? Are you training your body? Are you perfecting all those things? Or are you just watching the movies? Watching the movies, for the most part. Now, I'm not saying you should go grab a cape and go out and fight crime. But what I'm saying is that just understand the analogy there. That's a life of adventure and excitement, but it also it's also a life of sacrifice. Oh, and by the way, a life of leisure and relaxation, also itself a life of sacrifice. You're sacrificing those ideals of what you could have been, for the thing that you've chosen. Neither is maybe good or bad, or at least better or worse than the other. But it's worth considering, which of those lives you want to live. Because if you decide, I want that life of action and pursuit, well, then you can pursue it. But how does that end for you? Ask Socrates. I mentioned it before, I think to you guys, before, that if you want to change the world, what's going to happen to you? You're going to get shot. Think about, Lincoln. Wanted to change the world, what happened to him? He got shot. Martin Luther King Jr., he had a dream, then he had a head wound. John F. JFK. What happened to JFK? Got shot. How about, Gandhi, right? When he wanted to bring peace to the world through love and acceptance, then he got shot. What about, Anwar Sadat, who was the first person to sign a peace agreement between the Arab world and the Israelis? He got shot, yeah. They decided to celebrate his momentous signing by having a parade for him. Told him to wear something really bright and sit up front. And he got shot. You try to change the world through music. John Lennon. He got shot. That's true. That's discouraging. At least Jesus wasn't shot, though, right? Yeah, he was just crucified. And that's a figure worth considering right there. There's a reason that Jesus is like this archetypal figure on which Western civilization is founded. He's this guy who suffers, which regardless of whether you're religious or not, or whether you're Christian or some other religion, most people seem to dig Jesus, for the most part. Nobody's ever, and by the way, keep that in mind, by the way. If you're ever doing something and you find that people who hate you for doing it, just keep in mind, some people just don't like Jesus either. You're not going to please everybody. But what did Jesus do? He just went around and talked about love and forgiveness and helping each other. And of course, he talked quite a bit more about hell than heaven. But we tend to kind of exclude that stuff. So most of us kind of look at Jesus and think, he's a pretty good dude. But think about how it is that the guy lived his life. The guy ends up suffering on a cross without even deserving it. And he takes on that suffering willingly, which is why he is this archetypal symbol for Western civilization. The idea of the person who takes suffering and embodies it even, and then holds on to it for, even though he doesn't deserve it, but actually just takes it on, assumes the responsibility of it, and carries it through all the way to his death. That's why we admire it so much, because we look at that and we're like yes, that's what life is right there. It's the adoption of the suffering, whether you deserve it or not, and shouldering that responsibility and trudging forward anyway. Now, of course, we complain about it. We're like, I don't deserve the suffering. True, but if you can shoulder it anyway and drive forward, well, then you can have the ability to achieve things. But then again, look at how Jesus lived his life, though. This is a guy that when he's born, there's no room for him in the city. He has to be born in a manger, in a barn, basically, outside of town. He's an outsider from the very beginning. And then as he grows up, he goes, goes to the temple, and the temple, there's no room for him at the temple. They throw him out of the temple. And even within his own family, there's no room for him inside of his family. He's an outsider there. He's cast away from his family as well. And even when the guy dies, there's no room to bury him inside the city. He has to be buried outside of the city. This is a guy who's perpetually on the outside, who could never get along with society. So how is it that the world could not get along with the holiest man who ever lived, but somehow it gets along spectacularly well with you and me? Is it because we're compromised? Is it because we're not the things that we say that we are? Because we're not doing the things that we say we admire? Or has the world changed so much? that now it accepts those things from people. You know, it's interesting. Like, I think that what we'll find a lot of times is that, you know, as I used to say, that a lot of times Christians don't tell lies, just go to church on Sunday and sing them. But that's going to be true about most people who profess some sort of an ideology or some sort of a philosophy. We'll put pictures of people up on our walls and we'll say, yeah, you know, but we don't live those kinds of lives. You know, like you see pictures of Che Guevara. You know, if you know anything at all about Che Guevara, if you study anything about the guy at all, God, I think I'd hope that you'd be embarrassed to have him on a T-shirt. But even if you did, you know, hopefully you'd be embarrassed from it from the perspective of the guy was a communist. You realize you're putting his picture onto a shirt and idolizing him, which would be against, and you're paying money for that T-shirt. But we'll still sit there and go, yeah, I admire that guy. So let me get a pair of socks with his face on it or whatever. You know? And it is that there are all these kind of characters who we profess to admire, and we do admire them. You know, I'm not saying that we don't admire them. All I'm saying is that we just don't want to live like them. You know, we want to kind of take in the embodiment of that stuff, but we don't want to actually project it out into the world through our own character. Why? Man, it's a lot of work. It's also dangerous, because if you try to change the world, you'll get shot. So there you go. So when people ask you today, what did you learn in school today? If I try to change the world, I'm going to get shot or crucified. So I'm just going to put up a picture.
I feel
Questions?
like if everybody just kind of worked on themselves, like as an individual, everything else as a society comes in. Like,
I like the way you're talking to me. Work on yourself. Don't judge me. See the problem? You're probably right. But think about how it is that we react to that kind of talk. Fix myself. No, you fix yourself. There's something wrong with you. You gotta, hey, listen.
people nowadays are just too sensitive.
You know what? If you can't accept me on my bad days,
you don't
you don't deserve me on my good days. Yeah, it's true. But that's the thing. It's hard to do that. It's hard to fix ourselves. Because first we have to acknowledge that there's something wrong. Then we have to have a will to fix it. Then we have to put in the work to fix it. You know, this is why, like I talked about, cleaning your room. Clean your room. Why? Because if you can do that, I mean, most of us can't even do that properly, but we want to change the economic structures of the world. You know, you're going to find that for the most part, people who have the most chaos in their lives, those are usually the ones who want everybody else to change. You know, you see people whose lives are complete messes, or people whose psychologies are complete messes. And I'm not saying this in an insulting way. I'm saying this in a sympathetic way. It sucks if that's your life. Because then you're going through life and you kind of figure like, gosh, there's something wrong with me. You know, and yeah, there is something wrong with you. There's something wrong with all of you. There's something wrong with me. There's something wrong with all of us. But rather than embracing that and saying, well, I'm going to work every day to become better and to fix myself, because I fix myself, then I'm going to be able to operate better within this society. And I'll be able to fully actualize who I am, you know, what I could be. Because we don't know what the upper limits of what we could be are. You know, have a little bit of success, a little bit more success, and you focus on that, you're going to find yourself, you're not going to have time to be out in the streets with placards, you know, shouting nonsense phrases, meaningless things. You know, you're going to be too busy working on yourself. And surprise, surprise, what do you think happens when you make yourself better? You become more successful in every area of life. So there's a tremendous sympathy that you can have for people who are out there doing that, because you realize, God, that's a broken person. As much as they're hating you, as much as they're yelling at you and shouting at you and talking about tearing down a system, of course you want to tear down the system. It's a system in which you can't function and operate. You know, I was just talking to a former student of mine last week who was messaging me and was talking about how we just have to tear down this system and build up a new one. And I said, that's okay. What happens in the meantime? You know, we tear down a system. What happens while all that chaos is happening? What happens? Who takes care of life? You know. And I asked her, what kind of a society do you want to? And I just very short questions. What do you want to build up in this place? And she finally acknowledges and says, I don't know what should go in its place. I just know that our system is so rotten, it has to come down. Oh my God, how do you not know that what you're going to build up in this place is going to be worse? I mean, isn't that what history teaches us? That when we just say, you know what, just tear the whole thing down, and then we go to put something back up in its place, isn't the thing that we build up really fast to put in its place usually not very well thought out? And does, I mean, look at the 20th century, you can see that it's filled with, it's stacked, I mean, with hundreds of millions of bodies, because we just decided the old systems had to come down and get replaced. I'm not saying that the systems are good, but I'm sorry, I'm not saying the systems are perfect, of course, but the perfect is the enemy of the good. In other words, sometimes it's as good as it can be right now. Doesn't mean you can't improve it, but when we tend to think of it like, well, it's not perfect, so therefore it's such, you have to tear it down. Okay, apply that same standard to your own life then. You aren't going to have time to tear down the system. You'll be too busy trying to build yourself up. And then surprise, surprise, what happens if we fix ourselves? We fix everything around us. Everything else gets sorted out. We complain about corrupt politicians and how they're terrible and evil. But who voted for them? Yeah, it's us. How do we justify that? Oh, they're terrible. You're an evil piece of crap. Yeah, I thank you for your vote. Well, that's just because you're better than that piece of crap. Why are we settling for pieces of crap in the first place? And they say, like, oh, because you have to have money to run. Yeah, but who made it necessary to have money? Us. Because we won't vote for someone unless they've got cool commercials. If we fix ourselves, all that stuff takes care of itself. It's just that it's hard to do that. Because then we also will sit there and go, but okay, so I'm going to do that. Doesn't mean they're going to do it, though, so things will still be messed up. All right, so what's your plan then? To force that change onto people? And that usually is people's answer, by the way. Yes, we're going to force it onto people. But again, see how that turns out. So, questions? Yeah.
I've read the whole Bible.
Have I read the whole Bible? I have.
For real.
What's that?
For real.
For reals. With the S at the end and everything.
It's not impossible.
Have you read any other religions?
Oh yeah, all of them. Yeah, name them. I mean, gosh, Zoroastrianism is fascinating. I mean, I don't know how. Well, I shouldn't say that. You should read them all. You should read the Bible. You should read the Quran. You should read the Upanishads. You should read the Gitas. You should read about Zoroastrianism. You should read about Confucianism. You should read about Buddhism. You should read about these kinds of things. Why? Because these systems have existed for thousands of years. There must be something to them. In other words, I mean, when you look at, it's just like I was talking last. I'll mention it now. I wasn't going to mention it until the allegory, but sorry. And you look at how it is that we see religion here in the West. My voice doesn't stop doing that. You look at how it is that we see religion in the West, we just don't take it seriously. We might say we do, and even if we find someone who seems to take it seriously, we're like, oh man, that person's a religious extremist. Nah, they're probably a moderate compared to most places in the world. This is part of the problem. Like we look at Islam, and we'll be like, oh my gosh, Islam, how they're terrorists, they're this, they're that. Have you looked at what the book says? Why is it that the extremism forms in those areas? Well, if you look at most places of the world that are heavily Islamic, they take this stuff seriously. They believe it. And so then you get one or two who are kind of out there, and then all of a sudden you go, that's what it all looks like. This is what, 1.4 billion Muslims in the world? And what, 20 flew planes to a building? And then we sit there and go, all right, I wasn't going to say it, but everyone. But that's enough for us to just sit there and go, you know what? Yeah, let's kill them all. Let's be careful if they carry backpacks and stuff like that. 1.4 billion. You can say like that too. Billion. And then, but that's enough for us to kind of look at it and go, yeah, these people are problematic. And then to do that with any of these religions, but it's worth kind of figuring out why is it that they believe what they believe. Because for most of them, religion is something they take seriously because it does absolutely guide and affect your life, whether you believe it or whether you don't believe it. In other words, if you believe in it, if you believe that when you die, you have a soul and it's going somewhere and you're going to be there for all of eternity, well, what does 75 years matter? What matters long life if you're entering into eternity? Doesn't it seem like you want to prepare yourself for eternity? If you don't believe it, well then why on earth would you prepare yourself for eternity? And the thing is that most of us find ourselves not as like, yeah, I believe it, I buy it, and not, I reject it, no way, no God. We find ourselves kind of in the middle. Yeah, there's kind of a God, maybe, I think so, but we can't know it, so let's just live like there isn't. And then we have a test, and we become religious. And by a test, I don't just mean a school test, I mean any life test. Parents get cancer,
Who else do you turn to?
What's that?
Who else do you turn to?
Yeah, what do you turn to? All of a sudden it's like,
Friend.
hey God, it's been a while, I know. But then people start to bargain, you know. If you need to take somebody, take me, whatever. Like you're in any position to bargain. You know?
I feel so guilty because I haven't spoken to God in like a while. But when I do, it's just like I just kind of ramble on, and I find excuses. Like I give him excuses, and it's so dumb.
But if you believe that, then again, you're going to see it affects how you live. But it's a strange thing that people will say things like, I don't believe any of it. Have you looked into it? You know, similarly, people who say, I believe it. Have you looked into it? I mean, really? And I don't just mean in the sense of like, I know more than you do. No, whatever. It's more of a, it impacts your life. Look at Socrates. Socrates takes the hemlock. Why? Because he believes in this thing of the intellectual world and the pre-existence and the eternal nature of the soul. If you believe that, yeah, hemlock, no problem. But think about the power in that too. What can someone take from you in your life? Nothing. Oh, you're gonna take my house. We're gonna take your house. Now you're gonna be homeless. Ooh. You know, I know where my home is for all of eternity. Well, now you're poor now. You're broke. You know, we're gonna take everything from you. Ooh. You know, fine. I know where my kingdom is after this. But if you don't believe those things, well, then hell yeah, that stuff doesn't matter a heck of a lot more. And by the way, it should, because this is your only existence, and this is the one that matters, and we're wasting our time with it. You know? We're letting it slip away when we could be doing something to make our existence matter in that way. So, you know, that question matters, and it impacts you, whether you think about it or not, because it impacts how you exist. Questions? Comments, concerns, complaints, criticisms, critiques? Awesome. All right. That was long, but we get there. February 21st. Go ahead and take out your stuff from last time.